Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, ma'am and everyone. Before starting today's presentation, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Aprilianingtyas as the lay speaker, and my partner Dea Putri Aulia as the second speaker, and my partner Isti Hastuti as the first speaker. Okay, let's get started. We will explain a little about meaning interpretation. Okay, the first explanation will be conveyed Isti Hastuti.
Definition of interpretation. Interpretation is not always related to writing. It can also be the way someone describes a condition, scenery, and everything that is only visible but cannot be touched, and is also a progress of giving opinions or ideas, impression, or theoretical views on a particular object that comes from deep ideas and is influenced by the background of the person who did it. Interpretation can be by everyone according to their respective areas of mastery. Interpretation is the art of explaining something, not just explaining, but providing an overview, interpretation, and being able to understand. The role of interpretation in life is very important. Interpretation is able to minimize misunderstanding and misinterpretation. Next to principle of predation. First, explanation that have nothing to do with what is shown and explained are pointless. Second, information based on the element contained in the explanation. Third, interpretation can be considered as an art that combines various art to some extent. Fourth, mediation, but interpretation is not carried out sequentially according to need or persuasion. 5. Interpretation does not only show the overall situation of a particular group. And the last 6. Interpreting for children does not tire a child.
Next will be explained Dea Putri Aulia.
C. Types of interpretation. Types of interpretation as presented at the beginning can be done in many fields, and then the types become diverse. Here are the types in general. Number 1. Short story interpretation. The first type of interpretation is short story interpretation, which is the process of interpreting or describing a number of meanings from short stories. Number 2. Image interpretation. The second type is image interpretation, which is the activity of analyzing image or photos produced by a certain tool with the intention of talking them to identify objects and their roles. Number 3. Historical interpretation. The third type of interpretation is historical interpretation, which is an interpretive activity that includes historical data, giving rise to subjectivity. Number 4. Interpretation of nature. Interpretation of nature, which is the activity of interpreting and describing the condition or scenery of nature that is in front of the eyes. Number 5. Data. Data interpretation, which means one form of activity, which includes combining the result of an analysis with various types of questions and criteria at the specific standard. And number 6. Music interpretation. Interpretation can also be done on music. So musical interpretation is a process that is used to find whatever the composer wants, so that music lovers can know the feelings felt by the music creator when creating the music. And the last 7, map interpretation. The last type of interpretation is map interpretation, which is the process of reading a map by giving meaning or interpreting its content with the symbols written on it. D. Interpretation skill. Interpretation skill can be applied to anything, for example, written message, chart, diagram, maps, graphs, memes, and verbal and non-verbal exchange. People apply their interpretive skill to behavior, event, and social interaction when deciding what they think something means in a given context. A skill that enables the social worker to go beyond the stated problem and begin to delve more deeply. Interpretation can provide the silent with an alternative way of viewing the problem.
And let's learn direct and indirect interpretation. The first, direct interpretation. Interpretation is an interpretation activity that involves directly between the interpreter, the target group, and the existing interpretation object so that the target group can directly see, hear, or if possible smell, touch, and feel the interpretation object used. And then indirect interpretation. Technique indirectly or united service is an interpretation activity carried out by using tools in introducing the object of interpretation. Interpretation is presented in a program of slides, videos, films, series of pictures, and so on. These indirect interpretation programs must also be made interesting and can truly respond the natural potential that exists in the place. Okay, that's all from use. I represent the group of C and sorry if there are words that don't make sense, and if something is not clear, you can ask questions. And thank you for your attention. The least I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.